Qiqi, Xinyan, dehya. What do these three characters have in common? Well, they're not very good. So, in this video, I'll explain why they are bad and give some points on how they can be corrected. But before we start, I want to ask you, what is the purpose of a 4-man party? Weird question, I know, but trust me, it's gonna make sense. Well, the purpose of a 4-man party is to maintain a high DPS. So you can imagine a 4-man party as sort of a school work group project. But the project is not about the history of the Roman Empire or planning a marketing campaign, but rather about maintaining high DPS. You see here, we can actually relate the characteristics of the people that we work with on a daily basis with Genshin characters. Okay, you know that one guy that does literally all the work in the background? Well, in Genshin, that's literally Bennett. Think about it. This guy heals, cleanse and buff your characters all at the same time while being off-field. By this logic, we can actually relate some of the undesirable traits and behaviors that we see in our work, school plays to these three characters. Alright, first character, Qiqi. If we use the group project analogy, Qiqi would 100% be the lazy genius. Let's explain the genius part first. The thing about Qiqi is, her healing is actually really good. The healing talisman that she applies when she attacks an enemy or when an enemy is hit by her burst actually heals really well. So what's the matter with her? Simple, she's lazy. Okay, imagine you had a coworker that was super talented and smart, but they only work 42% of the time. Well, that's literally Qiqi. If we count the uptime of her healing talisman from her Ascension 4 and burst with their respective cooldowns, her healing talisman only has a 42% uptime. So although she might heal well, she doesn't really heal consistently. Also, another big thing about Qiqi is that for some reason, she doesn't generate particles with her skill, a trait so rare that is only shared between her and Barbara. This flaw of hers makes her way too reliant on her teammates to feed her energy so that she could use her burst. Like, there's people out there running Qiqi with 200 plus ER with the Radiant Shogun and still not be able to burst off cooldown. Though her healing is really good, her poor uptime and energy generation makes it really hard to access it. Now, you might be wondering, can Qiqi heal while she's on field? What about that part of her kit? Well, while on field Qiqi heals are team-wide, it's kinda slow and requires you to be, well, on field. And when you switch on to Qiqi to heal, you will most likely sacrifice some of your DPS while doing so. Though you can circumvent this by playing a team with deployable abilities, but most of the time there are other characters that can perform her role better. That's why I feel like we should just focus on her healing talisman. So the main problem with Qiqi is that she's a lazy genius, so let's fix that. In order for her to be, in my opinion, a more useful character, we need her to be a smart hard worker instead. So to do this, in my opinion, we need to sacrifice some of her healing prowess for a bit more uptime and consistency. Next, let's make her E generate particles. There is literally no reason why it can't do this in the first place. We can make her E generate a particle every time the Herald of Frost hits an enemy. Prior to this, Qiqi was really only viable on teams where she was the primary on-fielder, but with these buffs, it will make her more viable in teams with a primary on-field DPS or driver. If Qiqi is the lazy genius, then Xinyan would definitely be that one person with mild mood swings all the time. Basically, a person with mood swings depending on the situation or environment can have varying moods. In the case of Xinyan, her moods are either having a good shield in a high defense build or having decent damage in a high attack build. What sucks about this is that due to the limit of how much stats you can get from artifacts, you can't really take full advantage of her kit. You can either have one or the other. With whatever build you go with, you will be making either her skill or burst useless. If you choose to go the damage route, you're pretty much playing physical cause her burst nuke does physical damage. Physical teams are predominantly cryo and electro characters due to superconduct, so Xinyan being pyro just doesn't really fit in here. If memory serves me right, she's probably the only character in the game that doesn't synergize with the main reaction her kit is designed on. Hoyo definitely messed up her kit pretty bad.
Alright, to fix Xinyan, we gotta remove her mood swings. To do so, we have to make sure that she can relax. Let's stop exposing her to two different environments. Let's make all her abilities scale off just one stat. Since she's a pyro character, let's make her kit scale purely off attack. Now, you can just build her off one stat and be able to take advantage of both her scale and burst. You know, something that the majority of characters can do. Next, we can make her burst nuke do pyro damage instead of physical. It's gonna make her burst be very similar to the looks, but if we tone down on the damage, it'll be fine. With her nuke dealing pyro damage, you can set up some vaporized reactions for some good damage. With these changes, Xinyan will be able to be more competitive with the other shield characters in the game, making her a more viable choice in some meta teams. Finally, the elephant in the room, Dehya. Considering the state of her kid, she's looking a whole lot like an intern, not gonna lie. Interns are generally not very good at their job, and when you put them in a group project, the other three will probably have to pick up some of the slack from the intern. But the thing is, most of the time, it's not the intern's fault for being bad at their job. Sometimes the fault lies on the supervisor, which in this case is the devs. If you watched my last vid, you know I talk about power budget and how the devs pretty much balance every character around this concept. To keep things short, a DPS will have more power budget points allocated to damage, while supports will have more points allocated on energy and support capability. With this, DPS will be good at damage but bad at supporting and vice versa, which leads to balance. Well, the thing about Dehya is that the devs forgot to allocate the power budget onto her. She still got all 100 points of her not yet spent. Like, you know when you watch a tech review on YouTube and they'll say, "This is not indicative of the final product, this is just an engineering sample." Well, Dehya literally feels like an engineering sample that somehow got thrown into the main servers. Her multipliers, bad. Kit, bad. Damage, bad. Utility, bad. Her mains? Like, the thing that is wrong with her is that in almost all parts of her kit, she doesn't meet the bare minimum of what a character needs to be good, which just makes her feel suboptimal to play everywhere. To fix Dehya, she just needs a bit of guidance and help from her supervisor, the devs. The devs need to guide her so that she could do more damage, have better energy regeneration, and possibly remove the weird mechanics that are present in her kit, which are her burst cancelling when you jump and when you run into stationary objects. Like, why is this even a thing? Did an actual intern program her? And for her tanking stuff, people have asked for increased damage mitigation from her skill from like 50% to 75%, and increased uptime of her interrupt resistance from her Essential 4 talent, which are all great takes. The thing is, Qiqi and Xinyan in my opinion only needed small tweaks to their kit to be good, but Dehya just has so many things wrong about her, so the fixes for her are typically more general. At the end of the day, this video is only gonna be just another discussion about game changes that HoYoverse won't take seriously. To be clear, we're not asking for a lot here, we're just asking for these characters to be as good or strong as other units within their own niche. But unfortunately, boss and kit changes after release only occur once a blue moon. Like the last time HoYoverse actually buffed a character was Zhongli, but that was kind of a special case because the whole of China was angry about it. And I don't think we've had the same reaction from Zhongli release for these three characters. So chances are, HoYo will never buff these characters. Or won't they? I'm sure that some of you have realized, but sometimes when HoYoverse releases new artifacts and weapons, they can unintentionally and indirectly buff characters. Whether it is intentional or not is up to debate, but Dehya mains, Qiqi mains, Xinyan mains, there is.